Hey, I'll read here with Big Strong Book here today to talk about The Mauritius Command by Patrick O'Brien. So this is the fourth novel in O'Brien's Aubrey-Maturin series, and I have to admit, kind of right off the bat, this one, I wouldn't say it did for me what Post Captain and HMS Surprise did, which was blow me away completely in its study of character, its humor and levity, its heart and soul, if you want to call it that, um, and then its deft action, this feeling of adventure, exploration, of beauty and wonder, kind of all of those right elements, which both of those novels had. This one was, and again, I don't want to call it a little more by the books, but it almost felt that way. This was one I think I read the first third of it a couple of weeks back, and then read some other things in the interim, and then finally this weekend came back to it and was able to finish this in a couple more sittings. Again, that's still the net positive overall with the Aubrey-Maturin series is I love this world and I love these characters, and O'Brien's writing is as such where, as I've mentioned before, it is so easy to find yourself lost in this, to where each book, which most of these books are around 300 pages, you can read in a few sittings, and it's not a burden, I'd say, to do so. So anyway, with this novel, we pick up with post Captain Jack Aubrey on shore leave. He is married to Sophie, and they have two twin daughters. I'm pretty sure they're twins. I might be mistaken there and misremembering. But then he and Stephen, they kind of go off together, and they eventually they get orders, and their command is the Boadicea, the Boadicea. I don't. I'll just call it the Boadicea. And with this, as Aubrey is then elevated essentially to the pennant. I don't know if it's the rank of Commodore or the pennant, but he's then is referred to as Commodore Aubrey, as he's leading a command, excuse me, an expedition into the Mauritius Islands in the Indian Ocean, and they are French held, and so there's these expeditions to retake the islands. And I think I had read beforehand that the British and French skirmishes over the Mauritius Islands were true. It was a historical event, and apparently this novel has many more historical characters than might be common. And so, whether this was his attempt to take historical fact and truth and then to insert our beloved characters in the middle of it, I'm not sure. But there was just there was something that was a little bit lost for me within this book. I loved the maneuver. This is very much so a maneuvering novel, as you could argue that Jack, in a respect that he did not have in his previous novels, has obviously more authority in his role as Commodore, but he also he's got so much more at stake now, obviously, with having a family. And there are even a couple sections within this where Stephen is kind of, he's reminiscing on Aubrey, but then also on Captain Clonfert or Clonfert, and Captain Corbett, Lord Clonfert, and Captain Corbett. These captains that are part of this that are part of this. What do I want to call it? I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head. Not a convoy, but a squadron. There we go. It's there. It's referred to as a squadron, as they kind of head out together. That whether he is changed, and Stephen is also noting kind of the highs and lows, particularly with Clonfert, who there's, I mean, him and the Dr. McAdams in this book definitely have a lot of opinions on Clonfert and his personal tastes, interests, and proclivities, and how that might inhibit him from his command. But within this, and even so, like the other novels where Stephen kind of goes off to do some of his reconnaissance, espionage, spy work, all that kind of happens off screen, but we start to see the fruits of his labors. He's trying to turn the tide of a few of the islands of Mauritius kind of against the French, turn the public sentiment against it. And then it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of them kind of engaging in these attacks and then kind of retreating off to the island of Rodriguez, and then going back again. And then Stephen and Jack are later then split up, and Jack kind of is able to see kind of how these other captains operate with a plan kind of set in motion by Commodore Aubrey, but then will that plan be carried out to the exact letter, or even though they try to follow it true to its spirit, it might not always work out. And so I think Aubrey, in taking a little more of a back seat in this book, because I definitely think he does, as I said in previous reviews for books in this series, he's almost at a loss with himself when he's not in direct command. And there's a lot of, we see within this book even the opportunities, sometimes the skirmishes, the battles, the chases, when he is in command of a ship, often the Boadicea. It's not that he doesn't fall short of his aims necessarily, but he is given other directives. He builds plans, and sometimes those plans have to get cut and shifted for one reason or another, because of course Aubrey isn't the naval authority, so to speak. There are moments when he is, but often with the admirals that kind of filter in and out of this book, he has to, Admiral Bertie in particular, he has to defer to them, and that is difficult for him at first. And there's moments where Admiral Bertie expects to hear, boos and jeers, and it says he armors himself against them, but they don't come. I think because Aubrey is able to step aside and to be the bigger man. So, but again, I think this is just so, it's from one event to the next so much that I think the moments where the story could breathe and the characters could come alive that we saw in HMS Surprise and Post Captain, I think aren't afforded the same opportunity in Mauritius Command. So this is more a 3 to a 3.5 out of 5 for me. Obviously, I will 100% continue with this series because I just love these characters. It's just this, I think, was the first. I think this might even be maybe a half step below Master and Commander even. So I think the way that I would rank the first 4 books right now, HMS Surprise is the best. It took what was great with Post Captain and it just invigorated it with just a great energy. And then Post Captain right after that, and then Master and Commander as a third, and then I think the Mauritius Command as a fourth. So I honestly think that that's all I really have to say about this, because again, as you've seen in my previous reviews, the absolute strengths within there, they do continue. I mean, the character strengths continue into this. I think they're just where they might have been turned to a 10 in HMS Surprise and Post Captain. The energies are maybe playing at a 6 or a 7, and not to say that this feels almost like a bridge novel of sorts, like we're kind of getting to the next moment, the set piece. But I think from what I've heard, 5, 6, and 7 in this series act almost as their own trilogy of sorts. So I think I might feel different going into and then perhaps reading book 5 and seeing and comparing with this as to whether or not this is a drastic shift in the series, if this is a permanent shift, or if this is just a book that feels a little bit lessened. I don't know. I just think in comparing this to the previous books, it was a little bit of a letdown. but it is not so much of it is not a stinker by any means, or something that would completely throw me off from reading the other books. So, but this was still an enjoyable ride. I read this in 3 sittings, pretty much in 3 chunks of 100 pages. So again, O'Brien still, even when he's maybe not writing at the best and fullest capacity as he was in his previous 2 books, is still miles better than 95% of other writers out there. So onward perhaps to Desolation Island next. Not sure how soon I will read that. I intend to get to that before too long, though. So onward we sail. So the Mauritius Command, if you have read it, let me know what you think of it. And as always, I will see you guys next time.